So I invite you this evening to take your notes and get them out, and we're going to read the little passage of Scripture at the top of the notes as we begin our study tonight on the battle of Gog and Magog. Ezekiel chapter 38, verses 15 and 16. I'll start out with just 2 verses. Then you will come from your place out of the far north, you and many peoples with you, all of them riding on horses, a great company and a mighty army. You will come up against my people Israel like a cloud to cover the land. It will be in the latter days, and I will bring you against my land. Whose land? Now take note of that. That is God saying this. The terms of the Abrahamic covenant, where I would eternally give you the land, is still in place in the end times. That verse in this context, that I'm going to bring Gog and the mighty Muslim coalition into my land for my people Israel, is telling us who owns the land. Does Israel own the West Bank? Everybody say yes, yes, yes. I am hallowed in you, and the nations will know me, and I'll be hallowed in you, O Gog, before their eyes. So I want to just briefly highlight where we're going tonight and give you the class viewpoint for this great battle. I don't know if you're familiar with this battle before. I talk to people quite a bit, and I say, have you ever heard anybody teach on the Battle of Gog and Magog? No, I've never heard of them. Do you know about the Battle of Gog? No, I don't know where the Battle of Gog is. What book is the book? I don't know where the... How many of you... I'm going to take a survey now. How many of you have ever had a live teaching? You went and heard somebody give you a live teaching on the Battle of Gog and Magog. Would you put your hand up in the air? Oh, well, a dozen or so. 50 years ago, they held a Sunday school class. So this is one of the most controversial passages in all of Bible prophecy. 99.9% of all the popular prophecy teachers in America today are going to tell you this is the battle of Russia leading the Muslim nations into Israel before the tribulation begins, or it will be before the middle of the tribulation. And I'm going to give you a different viewpoint to consider this evening, that Magog invasion is the Old Testament version of the Battle of Armageddon. It's not a pre-tribulational war. It's not a mid-tribulational war. It's at the end of the tribulation, and all it really is God's details of the Battle of Armageddon. If you go to the book of Revelation and try to figure out who the nations are in the Battle of Armageddon, you can't find it there. But you can find them in Ezekiel 38 and 39. If you go to the book of Revelation and try to find why they're warring, you're not even going to find that. You'll find sparse details in Revelation, but fortunately God put those details for us in Ezekiel 38 and 39. Secondly, Gog is Antichrist, who leads the invasion of Armageddon, not Putin. Everybody say, Putin. Yeah. We're going to explain tonight why Russia can't be in this passage. And see, the timing of the battle is at the end of the 7-year tribulation. I think there's a chart that we'll put up. You can see on the left side of the chart up on your screen where the church is, and then where the rapture is. And you can see where we think Antichrist will rise just before the 7-year tribulation period. And then at the end of the 7-year tribulation period is where we place the Battle of Gog and Magog. Now, we've also already talked a little bit tonight, or you saw on the screen, how the Biden administration's anti-Israel policies are laying the foundation for the fulfillment of this war. It is sad but true that we have turned our back on the nation of Israel. We're actually penalizing Israel. Recently, I noticed that Biden stopped the sale to UAE of the F-35s, and he stopped military weapons to Saudi Arabia, both pro-Israel allies. He's not just turning against Israel, he's turning against the Arab nations that are turning for Israel. This is a purposeful anti-Israel posture. But we've said for over the last year that America's not in the end times. It's not there because America doesn't fit in God's strategy for Israel to be alone in the 7-year tribulation. And Israel needs to be alone in the 7-year tribulation so God can redeem them himself. Israel's not going to be able to call the Pentagon, and we're seeing America sadly deteriorate before our eyes. Is it sad? Yes. It's disgusting. It's pathetic. The decisions financially, the decisions morally, the decisions politically is a disaster right now, and we've never seen anything like it because it's a large cabal that's coming against what we would think is is America's Christian roots. And the faster America turns from Israel, the faster America turns from God. And that's where we're standing right now. Now, I wrote a book recently on the empire of Antichrist, and on the back of the book it says, "Keep your eye on Turkey." One of the details in Ezekiel 38 and 39, the battle of Gog and Magog, that you need to keep a watch on and you come away from understanding Ezekiel 38 and 39 is that how Turkey is so highly emphasized in this battle, and that Turkey has a lead role in this battle. What we learn from Turkey, in fact, is that what we learn from Ezekiel, is that the nation of Turkey is the undisputed leader of the battle of Armageddon. And that God will use Ezekiel's prophecy to reveal to us specifically that point. 5 of the 8 names used to describe the coalition coming into Israel, 5 of the 8 names are from Turkey. There's only 8 nations in the battle. 5 of the 8 names are from Turkey. We'll explain that in just a little bit. But folks, basically, Ezekiel 38 and 39 is a proof text for the revival of the Ottoman Caliphate and for Turkey's key role in the end times. Now, let's take a minute to try to understand what the popular role of this war is. I'm going to explain what most people tell you this war is about. They're going to tell you that, and I'm going to call it the Russian invasion theory, all right? Hey, just say with me, Russian invasion theory. You can do it. No, Putin is not Antichrist, and this is not the Russian invasion theory. And I'll get into the details of that in just a little bit. But they're going to tell you, most prophecy classes, that Gog is an unknown preliminary invader that's completely different than Antichrist. They're going to tell you that the battle of Gog and Magog is a pre-Armageddon invasion of Israel, but it's not mentioned anywhere else in Bible prophecy. The Russian paradigm is going to say that Gog refers to a mysterious, unknown Russian leader. Neither the mysterious Russian leader or Russia or a Russian invasion is mentioned anywhere in the Bible, except their effort to make Ezekiel 38 and 39 say that. Matter of fact, Putin, Russia, is totally, it's like America. It's not in the Bible. The Magog invasion, they'll tell you, is a preliminary different invasion than Armageddon. And the theory says that the defeat, now look, this one really gets me. Let me look up here at this on the screen, if you would, please. I'm going to call this the wipe out the Muslims theory. All right? popular prophecy books teach that there has to be a war before the tribulation to wipe out all the Muslims so Antichrist can rise up from the revived European empire. So they've found a proof text for no Muslims in the world any longer so that Antichrist can come out of Rome. When Russia and the Muslim armies are trounced by God, it'll create a power shift. It'll annihilate Islam altogether, and all of a sudden, Antichrist will rise up from France. How many of you think that sounds good? Well, I hope you don't if you're with me, but it's a very, very popular, mysterious theory. Am I right about that? How many of you realize I'm right about that? Sure. But let me tell you something, folks. In the Bible, there's one enemy of Jesus Christ. We know him now as Antichrist. But from Genesis to Numbers to Deuteronomy through the prophets, there's one enemy. There's a story of one coming great battle against Messiah King Jesus Christ. There's not a second enemy somewhere. There's not a second battle anywhere. And that paradigm is simply incorrect. So let's try to prove that. Is Putin Antichrist? Is Russia in Bible prophecy? So what I'd like to do is try to give you two verses of Scripture, one correctly translating Ezekiel 38:2 and one incorrectly translating Ezekiel 38:2, okay, in your notes? You'll notice that for Ezekiel 38:2, let me first of all say the new ASB and the New King James Version should be, for some reason decide to make Rosh a noun. Whereby, let me just say it this way, the King James Version, the New International Version, holds true to course and makes Rosh an adjective. So let's read the translation first. Can you see it in your notes? Ezekiel 38:2 about Rosh. Son of man, this is the incorrect way to translate this verse. Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, which is a mistaken translation, Meshech and Tubal. So here we see in this particular translation, unfortunately, they're saying Gog is from Magog, but he's also from Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal. The problem with that, of course, is how can Gog be from Russia and Turkey? Everybody knows that Meshech and Tubal is in Turkey. But here, all of a sudden, the word Rosh is translated in English Rosh. Now, let me just help you here for a minute now. The word Rosh appears 600 times in the Old Testament, and it always means chief or head. And it's never put into an English translation. Rosh in Hebrew, which means chief, is never put into an English translation as Rosh, except where these versions have put it in Ezekiel 38 and verse 2. So let's go to the correct translation, King James Version, the New International Version, which holds it to an adjective. And here's how the word Rosh should be translated as chief or prince. Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of God, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. Here we see that Gog is from Magog, which is Turkey. He's from Meshech and Tubal, which is Turkey. So let's do a couple quick conclusions you can see in your notes. 600 times Rosh is in the Old Testament. It's always translated as an adjective. It's never translated as Rosh and then transliterated because it sounds familiar with Russia. So we've got multiple problems here. We've got a translation that's taking the word Rosh and making it a noun and actually putting the Hebrew word Rosh as an English word Rosh. And some guy sees Rosh and he comes along and says, that must be Russia. Am I getting fired up about this or not? You're getting me all upset here. How many times does Rosh appear in the Hebrew? 600. How many times is it translated Rosh? Never! Except in Ezekiel 38:2 by mistake and transliterated then to mean Russia. There is chief musician, chief of the fathers, chief of the captains. There's never Rosh of the captains, Rosh of the fathers. It'd be like in Lamentations 1:5. Stay with me, please. Judah, it says, quote, Judah's adversaries, in Lamentations 1:5, Judah's adversaries are chief, her enemies prosper. Now, if you apply the same false transliteration to Lamentations 1:5, here's what you would have in Lamentations 1:5. Judah's adversaries are Russians, and her enemies prosper. And you could go through the whole Old Testament of the 600 times and see how silly it is to make Rosh mean Russia. In fact, if we did that, we could start writing new prophecy books. How it wasn't the Babylonians that conquered Israel, it were the Russians that conquered Israel in 586 BC, because Rosh means Russia in Lamentations 1:5. Maybe I'm losing you, but I want you to understand that it's a real problem. Rosh is only used because it sounds like Russia. And it's never interpreted as Russia anywhere else in the Bible. Hey, how many of you are familiar with Rosh Hashanah? You know what Rosh, same Hebrew word, used every year. What is Rosh Hashanah? It's the first. It's the new year. Chief, number one in line. Maybe we better change that holiday to Russia Hashanah. Maybe they've missed the ball all the way around on this deal. The Jews celebrate their new year. And what else is the problem with this is that Putin is aligned then with the Russian Orthodox Church, not Islam. It makes virtually no sense. How can prophecy experts assume that an Islamic jihad to take over Israel is going to be led by a Russian Orthodox guy? Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. The Magog invasion is driven by Satan, and what they want is Jerusalem. Russia is not part of Antichrist's empire. Matter of fact, if you understand Islam, Russia is infidel. And Putin's an infidel, just like you and I are, from an Islamic perspective. It's foolish, once you understand the Islamic slant in our world, to anticipate that the Islamic caliphate or coalition would be led by a bunch of Russian infidels to take over Jerusalem. Turkey believes, as the head of the caliphate, that Jerusalem belongs to them. Erdogan's saying that today. It's part of what used to be the Ottoman Empire, and all the lands that Islam has once conquered forever belongs to Islam. Turkey is holding meetings as we speak with the international community right now to stand up for the Palestinians and to try to build a military to go into Gaza and protect them from Israel. In Islam, Jerusalem is the capital and the heart of the caliphate. I've said plenty. The Russian-led invasion theory is without any emphasis. I'm moving on.